following program does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the City of Oceanside, its elected officials, KOCT, its board of directors, or staff.
Enjoy Professional Hair Care offers over 30 pH-balanced and stable products designed to meet the needs of every hair type and delivers beautiful, healthy hair from start to finish. And just remember to enjoy.
Welcome to this edition of The Voice of Oceanside. I'm your host, John Bonosoro, and on today's show, we'll focus on something that affects our entire region. SANDAG's San Diego Forward Regional Plan is the overall big picture of how our region will grow over the next 35 years. By partnering up with the region's cities and county government, SANDAG has drafted a plan for future growth and development. To tell us more about this is its Director of Land Use and Transportation Planning of SANDAG, Muggs Stoll. Muggs, thanks for joining us on The Voice of Oceanside.
Thanks for having me here.
You know, we're thinking about calling this the Voice of North County because this is definitely a regional subject, and it affects all of us. So right off the bat, let's talk about what SANDAG is, because not everybody knows.
Sure. We're the regional planning agency, and SANDAG is made up, we work for a board of directors, which is basically made up of the mayors or council people from all of the 19 jurisdictions within San Diego County. So the county government and all of the 18 cities are represented on our board. We have various policy advisory committees, like our transportation committee, which is made up of subsets of sub-regional representatives. But the idea is SANDAG, we do a lot of work in transportation, on regional transportation funding and so forth, because our projects cross boundaries. A lot of the regional transportation projects aren't in one city. They aren't only in the unincorporated county. They go all over. And so for that reason, all of the elected officials from throughout the region come together at SANDAG to make decisions and come to a consensus on decisions.
How long has this been in force?
SANDAG was formed back in, I think almost 40 years ago at this point, or over 40 years ago, and it's evolved over time. But on the transportation side, it really kind of accelerated in the mid-1980s when we passed our first half-cent sales tax measure that went exclusively to transportation. And SANDAG's board took on the role of the Transportation Commission to oversee how all those dollars would be spent in our region.
That sort of makes sense, because about 40, 50 years ago is when it became evident that cities aren't going to be separated anymore, particularly along the coast. It's not going through 10 miles of nothing to go from one city to another. They're starting to touch, and so everything's adjacent to everything now.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with why the concept for our regional planning agency was born.
And the other thing that I find intriguing when I've had knowledge of the subject is we're not just talking about cars here, we're talking about all kinds of transportation.
Yeah, our plan covers literally everything transportation, from transit systems, buses, trolleys, and the rail along the heavy rail we have along the coast that comes up here through North County. We have a major active transportation program, which is biking and walking. We're looking at technology in our plan, because technology is changing transportation so much in different infrastructure. We update our plan every 4 years, and 4 years ago, very few people even knew what Uber was. And that's a new kind of entry into the transportation system that we have to think about in terms of how we plan the transportation system looking forward.
That's interesting. Now, before we get into this in detail, I understand that SANDAG has produced a brief video on the subject.
Yeah, it's kind of an overview of the plan. Now that it's out, the draft is out for review. We're holding a series of 7 public workshops, and we're going to have a couple of public hearings. So this video kind of gives an overview of the whole plan.
All right, well, let's take a look at that now. We'll show you this overview video, and then we'll be back with Muggs Stoll and talk about some of the details.
If you live in the county of San Diego, you know it's a special place. From the beaches, to the mountains, to the desert, and everything in between. This is a place unlike anywhere else in the world. We love San Diego. We take pride in it, and justifiably so. But we also want to make it even better. Remember, this is the birthplace of California. Things started slowly, but picked up as more people came, fell in love with this place, and began to build their dreams. Every generation has reimagined our region, and every generation has worked hard to make their vision a reality, a place where people want to come and stay. It's an inspiring story, from the Kimball brothers who founded National City as a rail hub for California, to Alonzo Horton imagining a city where downtown San Diego is today. An idea that in turn sparked the creation of one of the world's greatest urban parks, acres of scrub and dirt transformed into gardens, ponds, fountains, promenades, museums. So San Diego has always been a place of opportunity, vitality, and quality of life. Over 3 million people live in this region. 1 million more are expected in the next few decades. They will all need homes, jobs, and ways to travel between both. That's our reality. And the question we must ask is, what is our generation's vision? How do we connect people to jobs, to education, to each other? Our region has adopted a bold approach that imagines a future in which residents reside and thrive in compact, energetic communities, and our open space remains open. More than half the county will be preserved as permanent open space. That translates to more than 1.5 million acres, more than the entire state of Delaware. You can see these communities organizing, rising, blossoming. San Diego Forward envisions a connected region, literally, a place where we all have choices in how we get around, and by their very existence, these choices help us attain our goals and dreams. This is a $200 billion living blueprint to build a better future. These investments in transportation and the environment are vital and necessary to our economy and what we love about San Diego. They draw us here. They persuade people to stay. You can see growth happening all around us, fueled by our wealth of resources and the tireless creativity of our neighbors. Few places are more remarkable. We have the opportunity and the ability to shape our destiny. We can decide how we want to get around to all the places that make up our lives. There is a vision. We have a plan. Now let's move forward.
Okay, welcome back. So Muggs, what is SD Forward the name of the plan?
Well, officially the name of the plan is San Diego Forward, the regional plan. And for us, it's a little interesting that we took transportation out of the name, because the plan really goes beyond just transportation. It looks at a lot of infrastructure issues and how they interact. Transportation is a big part of it. It's important because we're required to do a transportation plan every 4 years. The federal government requires that. So if we don't do it, we don't keep our federal transportation funds flowing. So that's a very important part of it. But we took the transportation out of the title for that. Now I will say sdforward.com is the website where you can find all the information, the plan itself, the information there on our workshops that are coming up. Some videos are posted there, things like that.
So one of the reasons to do it is it's required, more or less, but the plan also has goals. So what are the main goals?
Well, our board adopted a vision for the plan, and the 3 main goals are innovative planning and mobility, which gets to the transportation side of it, but also healthy environment and communities, which is so important in San Diego County, and then finally, a vibrant economy. So everything we do in terms of investing in our infrastructure in our region is kind of the underpinnings to the economy of the entire region. So those are the 3 areas that we're trying to cover with this plan.
as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing that really there are huge quality of life issues here in terms of improving quality of life with, say, local bike or walking transportation. And on the other hand, some of your solutions, a business-friendly solution, might be seen by some as degrading quality of life. So I guess this plan is about achieving a balance.
It really is. You couldn't have said it better. What we've always done, what our board has always supported, is kind of a balanced plan of choices, giving people choices. Now, for example, land use is changing very much. When we look back over the past 35 years and then we look ahead 35 years, a lot of the development in the future, we're going to have 1 million more people in our region by 2050, another 500,000 jobs and 300,000 new homes in San Diego County. But instead of those homes spreading out to the east of our county, they're really going to stay very much concentrated in the areas that are already developed. So that's a very different sort of land use than we've experienced over the last 35 years. So that calls for a transportation plan that gives a whole lot more choices. Frankly, all of the freeways in our region are already built. We do have plans to add carpool and managed lanes to our existing freeway system, kind of get the most that we can out of it. But we really are putting a large emphasis in this plan on other modes like transit, new trolley lines, adding more service to the coaster, putting in double tracking along the rail along the coastline to be able to run more coaster and Amtrak trains, and to add more managed lanes in the freeway system, and those lanes actually run our rapid bus system. We just opened that one up down the I-15 corridor this past year, and it's bringing on a lot of new transit riders that we've never had before. Plus biking, walking, all of those modes to give people options.
You know, I'm going to ask a question now and then give you time to answer it after the break so you can think about it and maybe our viewers can think about it.
Okay.
I'm hearing you talk about being responsive. Now, I don't want to use the word reactive, but you're responding to population growth, which certainly you don't have any control over, and you're responding to projected job growth. I'm wondering if there's any element in your planning process of actually getting out in front of the process and encouraging a certain type of development. And what got me thinking down this road was you mentioned that so much of the growth is going to occur along the coast. You have it within your planning ability to encourage inland growth, for example, based on how you build out transportation systems. So when we come back, I'd like you to address that issue. Is that ever an element in your plan where you try and not just prepare for the future, but actually influence the future in terms of how you design how we move about?
Okay, thanks.
And we'll get an answer to that question when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be gone for about 2 minutes.
Oceanside, a classic California beach city, housing unique destinations like the California Surf Museum. Step inside, ride through a wave of history and California surf culture. Learn about surfing's past and present. Discover a link between the ocean and lifestyles of the beach community. Located off Pierview Way in the heart of downtown Oceanside, the California Surf Museum is an exciting and fun place for everyone. Drop in today.
Looking for some cool threads, household items pop? Then come to Brother Benno's Mission Avenue Thrift Shop. You'll be looking good, and your generous donation will help Oceanside folks in their economic salvation. For directions and hours, call 439-1244 and check out Brother Benno's very cool thrift shop.
The City of Oceanside recently unveiled the My Oceanside City app, a free application which allows citizens to report issues and request services via their mobile device. My Oceanside City app also allows you to submit photos as you discover issues like potholes, graffiti, or litter, and submit them 24 hours a day. The issue will be immediately routed to the correct administrator in the appropriate department. Requests will be responded to quickly and efficiently, and you will be notified the instant it is resolved. The My Oceanside City app can be downloaded for free to your smartphone via iTunes or Android Marketplace. For more information, please visit the city's website at ci.oceanside.ca.us. Signal, stop, reverse.
Reverse parking is now in downtown Oceanside. As part of new development, Mission Avenue has been converted to a one-way street to safely accommodate walking and bike traffic.
Signal, stop, reverse.
Check your mirror, be sure to signal, and reverse into your spot.
Signal, stop, reverse.
So, signal, stop, and reverse park into your new and exciting downtown Oceanside.
Welcome back. The future of our region and SANDAG's San Diego Forward Regional Plan is our topic, and we'll continue our conversation with SANDAG's Muggs Stoll. So, what's the answer? Do you ever plan to make something happen as opposed to planning for reacting?
Well, that's not a real simple question to answer. SANDAG is not a land use authority. Well, we're made up of agencies that are the land use authorities. All the land use decisions are made by the cities, and for the unincorporated county, the county board of supervisors. And so in some respects, but we work very closely with them. We stay on top of all of their land use planning. We pull it all together and roll it up into a regional, what we call it helps build our forecast that helps us look out into the future, look at demographics, look at where, how we're going to grow, how we're changing. Like, for example, our population is getting more diverse and older as we look out into the future. That has an effect on how we do it. So we in some respects, we really rely on our member agencies and their land use planning for us to be able to do our planning. I would say in terms of assisting in developing things, like I said, more of future development is going to be in already developed areas. We do have a couple of programs that provide some incentive dollars. We have a smart growth incentive program where we go out competitively and give grants that don't actually build, they don't provide the money for all of the projects, but they provide some seed money to help put financing together to make projects that are in, say, mixed use projects near transit lines, will help assist putting the financing together to make those kinds of projects happen. So in that sense, we do help and provide some incentives for the kind of development that we see happening in the future.
So it wouldn't be in your charter to decide that an industrial park would belong more in, I don't know, Escondido than Oceanside from a transit standpoint. You would wait for land use decisions from city councils, and I guess the mayors transmit that to you and work with staff.
Exactly. Yeah, we work through the planning departments of each of the local cities and the county to understand where their land use changes are happening. Now, we do provide we do some regional-based studies and so forth, and put together some tools that, say, some of the planning departments of our member agencies can use. We can do studies that look around the country for different strategies for maybe parking management strategies. We recently did a study that provided a parking management toolbox. So then that's something that we can provide all our member agencies. They can look at it, and there's a whole suite of options there that they could say, hey, for our city, this might work, that probably won't, but maybe this will. And so we do things like that.
A couple of big issues which are separate but certainly interact with each other. There's the technology issue. And in some ways, Uber is more of a technology issue. A car is a car, right? It may not be painted yellow, but it's still the same. It's the technology that made a difference. And overall efficiency, both time efficiency and fuel efficiency. So how does your planning help us become more efficient from a travel standpoint? What are some of the things you guys are doing?
Well, I would say there are those who think that updating a long-range plan like this every 4 years is a little bit too often. But when it comes to technology, I think some people would argue it's not often enough because it's changing constantly. I think that some of the things we do, we try to make decisions. We don't know what technology is going to be 30 years from now, of course, but we try to stay on top of it and make decisions that will help move us in that direction. For example, you mentioned fuel efficient vehicles. Well, for example, electric cars. There's more and more of them on the road. we help to plan and implement and construct charging stations at strategic areas around the region to help facilitate that, so that more of that can occur, so we can move more in that area of technology. Another thing that we're going to be working on in this plan, we got a federal a Caltrans grant to look at a concept that we call mobility hubs. And what that is to take a look at some of the key transit stations around our region and look at putting in a whole host of options for people that get to the transit station. You might have car-to-go, you might have on-demand services, you might have a kiss and ride lot, you might have bike share. All those things to help address what we call that first and last mile issue with transit. Transit can get you from point A to point B really well, but if you don't live right close to the station, or your job isn't right close to the station, how can you finish off that trip? And if we give people, you know, 6, 7, 8 options at a station to be able to make that last mile of their trip, we think that'll be really helpful.
You know, one of the things I've learned as a fairly recent cyclist, I've been doing it about 2 years, and I was reminded by a colleague here at the station that you're even getting into things like bike underpasses and overpasses. And I've learned from experience, I'm far more likely to use the bicycle to make a trip if I don't have to hit these big intersections, right, which are time consuming and risky. So how much of your planning is along those lines, or is that something you leave to the city because it's so local?
Well, it depends. There are a lot of projects that are in our plan, say bike projects, that are regional projects. They might cross through multiple cities, and so that's why we at SANDAG, you know, do the design and construction of those. There are others that might be wholly within one jurisdiction, but they're really critical to the overall regional bike plan, and so we work on those. And we have a number of strategies that we're working on. Everything from what we call a Class 1 bikeway, which is a separated path. It's not on a street at all. It's just for bikes and possibly pedestrians as well, but it's completely separated. We have other strategies where we're taking part of the street right-of-way and putting in some sort of a buffer to provide, you know, a higher level of security for bike riders that are, you know, riding in, rather than just simply riding along with the traffic. I would say the separated, the grade separated alternatives that you mentioned, probably a little bit more rare because they're expensive. I mean, it's when you have to build a bridge, that adds a lot of cost to a project. There are some of those. We recently built one in Encinitas along the rail tracks, for example, which is used by both bicyclists and pedestrians over there by Swami's. But those are kind of tough because they're pretty expensive. But that's why we want to employ a whole host of options in providing you know, better options to get not just the what I might say the professional bike riders out on the road, but to get people who you know, maybe they have a little bit of concern, and if they just had a facility that they felt a little bit more safe on, would actually get out and do some everyday trips, and that's what we're really trying to get after in the plan.
One of the things that's just part and parcel of construction, and you mentioned you do the construction all over the country, but particularly within a few miles of the Pacific, would be the environmental impact report. Mm-hmm. Is that within your area of responsibility, or is that an add-on after you do your planning process? No, it's done with it. Our board released the draft plan a couple of weeks ago for public review. We're about a week away from publishing the environmental impact report on the plan. They're done together. It just takes a little extra effort to put the environmental impact report together, so that'll be out for public review as well. We'll be looking for comments on that. And what that really does is it assesses the impact that the overall plan will have on the environment. It's kind of a challenging process, to be honest with you, because oftentimes environmental impact reports are done for projects, specific projects. If you're going to build, I don't know, a bike path from one street to another 2 miles long, and you can really analyze the impacts. This plan is for 35 years worth of investments, many of which are just lines on a map. We haven't done any design work, very little work, and yet we still have to kind of assess what does that mean for the environment. So we have to look at things like, you know, air quality impacts and noise impacts and so forth. So it's a pretty complicated document, but it's something that's required by California law and something that we put a lot of effort into. You know, I want to ask about major projects, and this may be moving on a little bit from specifically this plan, because I realize it's the general plan.
Sure.
But when it comes to fruition, it will be individual projects.
Absolutely.
So, and the one that obsesses, and I'm going to use that word accurately, obsesses everybody here is the 78 going on to the 5 south and the famous stoplight.
Right,
Two freeways and a stoplight. So I don't want to make you answer that one first, but is that one of the major projects? And if not, what are the big keystone projects that are either underway or close?
Well, I would say that is one of the big projects in the plan. Probably the closest project that's related to that's in the coming up in the next 5 years, where we actually have money programmed for, would be the extension of the carpool lanes on Interstate 5, where they end at Manchester, all the way up to 78. So that'll be like the first step. And then there, in the plan, we also have adding carpool lanes to 78 itself, which also includes improvements to the 578 interchange that you mentioned, where the signal is, as well as improvements to the interchange at the other end of 78 at Interstate 15, so that you can get directly into those managed lanes that we've opened up all the way up to 78 on the I-15 corridor. So those are big projects. I would also tell you that we continue to add double tracking segments to the coastal rail corridor, which every time we add more double track, it gives us more reliability to be able to keep the coasters running on time. Ultimately, in the next few years, it's going to be able, it'll give us the flexibility to add more coaster trains than what we have today. It'll also help keep the Amtrak trains running on time, the ones that go up to Los Angeles and to points north from there. So in North County, those are some of the big investments that you're going to see. The Interstate 5, the rail corridor, and 78 are three of the biggest corridors that we have in the plan.
Is full double track from Oceanside to San Diego the goal?
It is. It is. Now that's going to take a little while to be able to get the entire track double track. Will probably extend out towards the end of the plan, towards 2050. That would include the current strategy. We haven't done a whole lot of design work, but looking at a planning level, the current strategy is once you get down to Del Mar and the Bluffs, we're probably going to have to look at tunneling those tracks away from the Bluffs, because keeping the tracks on the Bluffs in Del Mar is probably not a good long-term strategy there. That's a pretty expensive and complex project, and so that's probably going to be at the tail end. But every time we make even a mile of double tracking, it helps it helps our rail operations tremendously.
We've got about a minute left, actually about a half a minute left. I'd like you to repeat the website. And are there other websites or methods by which people can interact? I realize the primary interaction is through your elected officials, but is there anything more direct?
Well, sdforward.com, all one word, sdforward.com is where all the information is. We've got in Oceanside, we have our workshop scheduled for in the evening of May 20th at next week at Oceanside City Hall. We've also got more meetings, one in UTC, all the way down at San Ysidro and central San Diego as well. So that's how people can get involved. You can go to sandag.org and get all kinds of information on all the things we do at SANDAG, and we really appreciate everybody in North County coming out and giving us their thoughts. And you know, we've spent a lot of time putting this plan together, but we're always interested in getting people's input and making the plan better.
Well, you've got a lot going on, and we're out of time.
Okay.
There's probably more to talk about, but that's it. So I want to thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks so much. It went quickly.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching The Voice of Oceanside. Today shows a great example of why KOCT is your community channel. Now, the best way to tune into your North County community and the issues and topics that affect you is to stay tuned to KOCT. And remember, you can watch all of our local programming as video on demand by going to KOCT.org. And a good way to support local independent media is to become a friend of KOCT. Thanks for watching.
Enjoy Professional Hair Care offers over 30 pH balanced and stable products designed to meet the needs of every hair type and delivers beautiful, healthy hair from start to finish. And just remember to enjoy.